If you grew up outside India or Nepal, in Toronto, London, Vancouver, Dallas, Sydney, New York, wherever, you probably had this conversation with a classmate. They ask, "What religion are you?" And you say, "Hindu," or maybe Sanatana. And then something strange happens in your head. A framework you did not choose, built for a completely different kind of a tradition, that quietly takes over the conversation. Because in that framework, a religion needs one founder, one book, one set of commandments, like 10 commandments. Follow it and you are saved. Reject it and you are not. And when you try to fit what you inherited into that box, it feels old, it feels rigid, it feels like something you have to defend rather than something you actually understand. I want to spend the next few minutes on why that feeling is not really about your heritage. It is about a translation error, one that happened a long time ago, and one that almost nobody stops to question. A professor I have been reading recently, Nath Jha at Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, put his fingers on something simple and important. We translated that Sanskrit word dharma as a religion. And that one choice has been quietly shaping how generations of us think about how our traditions, ever since. Here is the actual definition from the tradition itself, not in a dictionary. I read Sanskrit. Dharna dharma ityahur dharmo dharayate prajaha. Translation is, what holds things together, what sustains them, that is called dharma. Dharma is what upholds all beings. Dhara. So the root is a dhara. Dhara to means to hold, to sustain, to integrate. Think about the gravity. Gravity is what holds the planets in their orbits. It is, like what tradition calls Rita. Now, bring that down to your own life. You have a duty to your own body, and if you ignore sleep and nutrition long enough, your body will remind you that duty was never optional. Duty is never optional. You have a duty toward the parents who raised you, the society that educated you, the ecosystem that gives you the air you are breathing right now. None of us, you know, none of that is dogma. It is simply a law of interdependence applied to a human life. There is a second layer too called niyama. Niyama means order and jurisprudence, so the law. This is why India's Supreme Court still carries that old motto, Yato dharmas tato jayah. Where there is dharma, there is victory. It does not mean my religious group wins. It means where there is a systemic truth and balance, that is where justice can actually hold and prevail. Once you see dharma this way, it stops being an old restrictions you have to defend at a dinner party. It becomes something closer to a compass for a world that genuinely feels chaotic right now. There is a second misunderstanding I want to clear up, because a lot of young generation, young people, they carry it without even realizing it. Look at who actually wrote our biggest texts, stories. Valmiki, who wrote the Ramayana, came from a forest community, not a priestly family or Brahmin family. Veda Vyasa, who put together the four Vedas and wrote the Mahabharata, was the son of a fisherman's daughter. The Puranas, they were carried forward for generations by ordinary storytellers, not by any elite group from elite bloodline. The tradition has a word for this called Vidya Vamsa, the family of knowledge, instead of the family of any blood. Wisdom belonged to whoever went looking for it, not to whoever was born in the right family or right house. Now, here is something almost every young person outside India, Nepal, and in these South Asian countries, they run into sooner or later. Someone brings up the Manusmriti and says, "This is the proof. This civilization was built on, rigid, unfair caste system, etc." And what I have noticed is that almost nobody making that argument on either side, honestly, has actually sat down and read the original Sanskrit or the authentic book. Most of what people repeat comes from translations made during the colonial times. And those translations were made for a reason, to sort a huge and varied population into simple categories that were easy for a foreign government to manage. So let us look at what the tradition actually says. That is important. Our texts are not all treated as equally binding. They are not equally binding. On one category, the Vedas and Upanishads, they're called the Shruti. They hold the deepest, most universal truths. Then there are texts like the Manusmriti, called the Smriti, Shruti and Smriti. And these are more like the law treatises, law books written for particular time and place. They were meant to be updated as times changed. And there has always been a rule for what happens when a law book like this disagrees with the deeper truth in the Vedas. There is one verse, Shruti Virodhat Smriti Pramanam. That means, the translation, if a law book contradicts the Vedas, the Pramanam, the part of that law book has no authority. In other words, these texts were never meant to be the final or unchangeable word. They were working documents, and any part that goes against the deeper idea that all beings share one consciousness simply does not hold up. Now, look at how Manu himself explains who even gets to decide what counts as law. This is Manusmriti, verse 2, point 1. I get it from the text itself. I read from my note here in the Sanskrit. Pardon me if I can't read it properly. Vidvibdi sevitah sad भिर्नियत्म द्वैसरागिभि हृदये नाम नुज्ञातो यो धर्मस्तं निबोधत. Um, so this is the actual Sanskrit text from Manusmriti itself. Learn this. Real dharma, what it says, real dharma. We have already explained about what is dharma, right? So real dharma is what wise and good people follow. People who are always free from hatred and favoritism, and it has to feel right in your own heart. Yeah. Read that again slowly. To even have the authority to define what is right, you had to be free of prejudice and free of bias. So, anyone using these texts to look down on another person or to hold power over them was already disqualified by the text's own standard, by the author Manu himself. Next, there is a history part also. And I want to be honest rather than, neat and tidy about it. Some historians who study old trade and guild records, they say that what we now call zati worked for a long stretch of time, more like independent trade guilds, weavers, metal workers, traders who ran their own affairs and controlled their own skills. Other historians disagree and say real hierarchy and real discrimination existed long before colonial era existed. This is a genuine argument among people who study this for a living, and I'm not going to pretend this is settled. No, what does seem well supported is that when the British tried to count and classify the whole population for administration, that process helped freeze a much more flexible regional system into something far more rigid. So it exacerbated the already existed issue. None of this erases the real pain the caste discrimination has caused and is still causing for real families. What it does mean is you do not have to accept the simple version either way. Read the actual text. Read historians who disagree with each other. Come to your own conclusion instead of borrowing someone else's. Here is one more verse worth mentioning here, especially given what the planet is going through right now. This is Sanskrit verse. Mata bhumihi putro aham prithibhyaha. I translate this into English. It's very simple. The earth is my mother and I'm her child. Mother and child relationship with earth. This was not just nice wishy-washy line. In old legal texts like the Narad Smriti, cutting down a tree or harming an animal without good reason was treated as a crime because the people the law protected were never just humans. Rivers, forests, and animals, they were included in that. Compare that to a way of thinking that treats nature mainly as something to use up. One way sees a resource, the other sees a mother. That difference changes how an entire civilization behaves. You might reasonably ask, is that just something we tell ourselves inside our own culture? Let me give you three names from outside of this culture. Erwin Schrödinger. Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founders of quantum physics, he spent years reading Advaita Vedanta and said, he said openly that this philosophy gave him a way to think about the oneness of consciousness that European thought simply did not have. Werner Heisenberg, known for uncertainty principle, he said that after he read Indian philosophy, ideas in physics that had felt confusing to him suddenly made sense. T.S. Eliot, you've heard, who studied Sanskrit in Harvard, said the depth of the ancient Indian thinkers made many European philosophers look like beginners next to him, next to those philosophers. That brings me to a phrase you have probably heard somewhere, uh, without doubt, but without knowing where it comes from, right? Just two syllables. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. That means the whole world is one family. And this is from Rig Veda, actually. Another verse, Yatra Vishwam Bhavatte Kanidam, where the whole universe feels like one shared nest. I want to be a little bit clear about what this means. That's important, and what it does not mean, because it is easy to get wrong. It is not saying everyone should believe the same thing. This tradition was always comfortable with real disagreements and different ways of thinking, what we call critical thinking. It was there. What it is saying is that underneath our different beliefs, the same spark of consciousness lives in everyone. You are not being asked to convert anyone. You are only being asked to see and observe it. This is where our weekly series of Bhagavata comes in, and honestly, this is the part I think about the most. Why spend time with texts like the Bhagavad Purana in year 2026 when your phone can answer anything in 3 seconds? Because the Bhagavata is not some abstract idea floating above your life. It is a very old manual for a very modern problem. Our feed. They are built to either wind us up or wear us out, keep us restless or leave us numb. Most of us spend our days somewhere between the two, rarely calm. These two extremes. The text works directly with the mind, your thoughts, your sense of self. Who am I? and how you make sense of what is happening around you. It teaches how to build real clarity so you can stay steady even while the notifications keep coming, nudging. This is the modern problem, right? There is a line from the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, that says this as well. Atmaupamena sarvatra samam pasyati Arjuna. The meaning is, the translation, the one who feels every being's joy and pain as their own, Arjuna, that is the true yogi. An AI can sound very caring. It is just predicting words. It cannot actually, feel your joy or your pain as its own. That ability is something this tradition trains in a real human being, and it is not something you can hand off to a machine, like a delegating to a machine doesn't work. If you are a parent watching this, let me speak to you directly for a moment. I understand, wanting your children to fit in fully, to not give them anything extra to explain at school. But what I am talking about here is not any extra weight. It is more like a foundation. A child who knows where a phrase like "Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam" comes from will not feel, embarrassed by their grandmother's stories. They will feel like they are standing on something solid. That kind of child does not have to choose between being modern and being rooted. They can walk into any classroom or workplace in the world carrying something steady inside them, something a lot of their friends are equally missing. That is not about looking backward. It is about a young person being able to think clearly and stay grounded in a noisy world that we are living, because they know where they come from. So, if you are a young person watching this, far from where your family's stories began, I want to leave you with one thing. Reconnecting with this is not about going backward. It is about picking up something that was already yours and building on it. We are going through the Bhagavad Puran every week in English, chapter by chapter, on this channel. If any of this landed with you, watch an episode and send it to someone in your family who might need to hear it too. Pranam, and thank you for spending this time with me.